Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving into a force that doesn't just nudge the world forward, it literally launches it into a completely new orbit. We are talking about radical innovation, the real engine of long-term growth and the thing that creates entirely new futures.
I want you to think about your smartphone for a second. Every year, right, a new one comes out. It promises a slightly better camera, maybe a little more battery life. And yeah, it's an improvement, but is it really, truly changing the game? Now let's compare that to the jump from a clunky old flip phone to the very first iPhone. See, that wasn't just an upgrade, that was a full-blown revolution. It's the difference between just tuning an engine to get a little more horsepower and building a rocket ship to go to the moon. And this right here introduces two totally different paths to progress. You've got one path, which is all about those small, steady, predictable steps, and then you have the other, giant, scary, uncertain leaps into the total unknown. So what exactly is radical innovation? Well, here's the textbook definition. It's taking some highly creative invention and turning it into something commercial that's so powerful, it just transforms the entire market. We're not talking about a new feature, you know? We're talking about a completely new product, a new technology, or even a new business model that delivers this shocking leap in performance or cost.
Let's break these two approaches down side by side. So, incremental innovation, that's all about refining what you already have to get those short-term gains. But radical innovation, that's about these huge technological shifts that blow up entire markets and create long-term growth. You know, it really just boils down to a totally different mindset. One is all about exploitation, squeezing every last drop out of what you already know, while the other is about exploration, venturing out into the great unknown.
And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. We live in a world that was literally built by these kinds of breakthroughs. The personal computer, Google search, jet planes, electric cars. These weren't just better versions of old things. No way. They were entirely new categories that created new industries and completely changed how we live our daily lives.
Okay, so if this kind of innovation is so powerful, why doesn't every single company just do it all the time? Well, that's because it is an incredibly high-stakes game with absolutely massive risks and massive rewards.
And here is the core challenge. This chart kinda says it all. With incremental stuff, the level of uncertainty is pretty low. You can do market research, you can pretty much predict how things will go. But with radical innovation, the uncertainty is it's off the charts. You are literally sailing into completely uncharted waters. And let's be real for a minute. The stark reality is that most radical projects fail. They just do. It's so hard to guess how customers will react to something they've never even imagined before, and the financial and technical hurdles are just immense. But, and this is a really big but, when they succeed, the payoff is world-changing. You don't just gain a little market share. You create entirely new markets from scratch. This is where true, sustainable, long-term growth and profit come from.
So this leads us to this fascinating paradox. You'd think the biggest companies, right, with all the money and all the resources, they'd be great at this. But time and time again, history shows that the market leaders are often the ones who completely miss the next big thing. So why does this happen?
Let's hop in a time machine and go back to the late 19th century. Western Union was an absolute titan. I mean, they had mastered the telegraph, they built a communications empire. They were the undisputed giants of their day.
And then along came the telephone. And as the innovation expert Clayton Christensen points out, Western Union looked at this new invention and basically dismissed it. Why? Well, because in its early days, it was terrible for long-distance calls, and that was their main business. They focused on what the new technology couldn't do instead of trying to imagine what it could become.
And this pattern just keeps on repeating. I mean, Nokia and Ericsson, they were the kings of the mobile phone, but they completely whiffed on the shift to smartphones. BlackBerry, with its beloved little keyboard, just could not see how touchscreens and apps would completely blow up their business. So why does this happen? It's because successful companies become masters of exploitation. They build these super efficient, machine-like processes to perfect what they already do. And this makes them almost allergic to the chaos and the high uncertainty that is required for true exploration. So if you want to avoid becoming the next big cautionary tale, how do you actually build an organization that can launch the rockets and not just keep tuning the engines? Think about it for a second. Really, is your own company, your own workplace, structured for those predictable, incremental gains, or is it actually set up to handle the messiness and the chaos of a major breakthrough?
Well, all the research points to 4 essential ingredients that have to work together. It all starts with visionary leadership. You need someone who can see the future and get everyone else excited about it. Then, that vision has to be nurtured in what are called organic structures, things that are more flexible, less rigid. This environment helps create a culture that doesn't just tolerate risk, but actually embraces it. And finally, you have to empower teams from all across the company to make that vision a reality.
Now, culture is, you could argue, it's the most critical piece of this whole puzzle. A truly innovative culture is brave. It's brave enough to give up on its own successful products to make way for the future. It's driven by a clear, powerful vision. And most importantly, it provides a safety net. It has a high tolerance for taking risks and for the failures that will inevitably happen along the way.
So ultimately, the main takeaway here is this. Breakthroughs are not accidents. They don't just happen. Radical innovation is a deliberate, strategic choice. It's about consciously designing your entire organization to explore the unknown, even when, and maybe especially when, it's scary and uncomfortable.
It really is the difference between asking, how can we make this 10% better, and asking, what if we just started over from scratch? So as we wrap up, I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. What existing market out there is just waiting for its rocket ship moment?